Okay, in this method, we're going to be solving this quadratic equation by factoring using the big X method. Okay, so I know that when I factor this, I want it to look like this. But I'm trying to figure out what are these numbers that are going to be in here, okay, to give me that 7x and that 12. So we're going to use the big X for that. My equation is already in standard form, which means it is in ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so that means that a is the coefficient of x squared, so in this case that's 1. B is the coefficient of x, so in this case b is equal to 7. And then the constant, that is c, so in this case that is 12. If you look at the big X method, we always write c on top. So at the top here I'm going to have 12. Okay, at the bottom we always write b. In this case our b is 7. So I'm looking for two numbers that when I multiply them I get 12, but when I add them I get 7. So numbers that multiply to get 12. Well, I know 2 times 6 gives me 12, but when I add them, 2 plus 6 is 8. So that's not it. So let's try some more. 3 times 4, that is 12, and they do add up to 7, so those are my two numbers. So that means that those are the two numbers that I can add to x. Okay? The order doesn't really matter, by the way. And this is my equation now written in factored form. Okay? So we're not done solving. All we've done is factored. So now we're going to rewrite this, because if I know that this factor times this factor equals 0, one of them must be 0. That's called the zero product property that says that. So either that is 0 or x plus 3 equals 0. So if I subtract 4 from each side over here, I get x equal to negative 4. Over here, if I subtract 3 from each side, I get x equal to negative 3. So those are the two values that will make this equation true. Okay, so this method is only used when this is 1. How about when it's not 1? Well, we try to see if we can make it 1. How? By factoring out that number. So in this case, that's a 3. Okay, so this is the opposite of distributing. We're factoring. So 3 times what is 3x squared? Well, that's x squared, or 1x squared. Then we have negative 15x. Okay, if we factor out a 3, we get negative 5x left over. And for the last term, if we factor out a 3, we have 6 left over. Where did that come from? Well, it's like dividing each term by 3. So if we divide this by 3, okay, that gives us the 1x squared. If we divide the next term by 3, sorry, that was a 15. Okay, we get negative 5x. And the last term, we have to do this to everything. Divided by 3, that's 6. So that's where these came from, okay? So the 3's outside, it didn't go anywhere, okay? If I were to distribute this, I better get the original equation, okay? Okay, so let's keep going. Now that I made this a 1, now I can use the big X method like we did in the other example. Okay, and if you can get to the point where you don't need this method, you can just write out the factors, that's perfect. But if you still need it, write it. So remember, here we have C. In this case, now A is 1, B is negative 5, and C is 6 in this form that we just wrote. So at the top, I'm going to write 6. At the bottom, remember we have B, so that's negative 5. So what two factors of 6 add up to negative 5? Well, the only way to get a positive 6 is if I have a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. And only a negative times a negative will add up to a negative number. So I could have, let's say, negative 6 times negative 1. Well, that doesn't add up to negative 5. What about negative 2 times negative 3? Yeah, that adds up to negative 5. So those are my two numbers. So now I can write this in factored form. So when doing this, do not forget about your 3. So we have 3 times x minus 2 times x minus 3. That's equal to 0. So what does that mean? Either this quantity equals 0 or this quantity equals 0. So what will make each of those quantities be 0? To find out, write out your two equations. So either x minus 2 equals 0 or x minus 3 equals 0. So we add 2 to each side. X could be 2. Over here we add 3 to each side. So x could be 3. You got two solutions. Okay, last example. Solve by using the quadratic formula. Why would we use the quadratic formula instead of the previous method? Because we can't divide everything by 4. We can divide the negative 8 by 4, but not the negative 5. Okay, so first of all, let's identify who's who. We know A is equal to 4, B is equal to negative 8, and C is equal to negative 5. This is my quadratic formula. It's really important to notice a few things. We have what most people say is negative b, but actually that's the opposite of b. So if b is a negative 8, the opposite of b will be a positive 8. Okay? So let's plug it in, and this is why it happens. So negative, or the opposite of negative 8, is going to be positive 8, plus or minus the square root of b squared. B is negative, so make sure you put parentheses around it in your writing and in your calculator. Minus 4 times a, that's 4, times c, that's negative 5, all divided by 2 times a is 4. Okay? Negative 8 squared is going to be positive 64. If you're not getting a positive, you're typing it into your calculator wrong. Okay? Negative 4 times negative 5. Well, that's negative 16 times negative 5. So that's a positive 80. So let's write our equation again. We have 8 plus or minus square root of 64 plus 80. This gives us 80. So we're just replacing it. All divided by 2 times 4, which is 8. We can just write 8 now. Okay, so from here, let's simplify this so we can take the square root. So I have 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 plus 80. 64 plus 80 is 144. And to the square root of 144 is equal to 12, because 12 times 12 is 144. So 8 plus or minus 12 all over 8. So x is 8 plus 12 over 8, or x could be 8 minus 12 over 8. That's what this plus or minus symbol means. Could be plus 12 or minus 12. Okay, so x is equal to 20 divided by 8. We reduce this. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 4 goes into 8 2 times. So this is 5 over 2, which is the same as 2.5, or 2 and 1/2. On the other side, 8 minus 12 is negative 4 over 8, which is negative 1/2, or negative 0.5. So those are my two possible solutions. X equals 2.5 or x equals negative 0.5.